Let's go over to my first guest, who I'm sure is sharing my fury. I just cannot believe this. Yesterday was Holocaust Memorial Day, a day we must never forget. This was to commemorate the worst crime in the history of humanity, the annihilation, the extermination of 6 million Jews by Adolf Hitler's Nazis. It's a very important day. Very sad to hear that fewer and fewer schools are now marking that very special day. If we forget, folks, it could happen again. I tell you, it seems to me it was trying to forget. That's the BBC, which you know, has got problems. We know about their pro-Palestinian tendencies, their anti-Israel tendencies, spilling over, I think, sometimes into anti-Semitism. And I don't know how else you interpret what happened yesterday. Let's welcome my guest, Director of Investigations and Enforcement at the Campaign Against Anti-Semitism, Stephen Silverman. Welcome, Stephen.
Good afternoon, Kevin.
Before we start, this isn't just one clip from the BBC. This is a montage from several programmes yesterday. I still cannot believe this. Watch this, folks.
27th of January, Holocaust Memorial Day, a day for remembering the 6 million people who were murdered by the Nazi regime over 80 years ago.
Now, today marks Holocaust Memorial Day, a day for remembering the 6 million people who were murdered by the Nazi regime over 80 years ago.
Today marks Holocaust Memorial Day, a day for remembering the 6 million people who were murdered by the Nazi regime over 80 years ago.
Stephen, do you think it's an important nuance that those 6 million people were Jews, or was the BBC right to just sort of gloss over that little fact? What the hell is going on? That is a disgrace.
Isn't it astonishing that with the amount of scrutiny that they have been under because of the way they have handled matters relating to Jewish concerns in this country, and particularly their appalling reporting of Israel's war against Hamas, that they have walked into this bear trap of their own making? And the thing to bear in mind is that this is nothing new. If you go back to 2019, they aired a documentary called One Day in Gaza. In it, they interviewed Gazans who made it very clear that they wanted to wreak all sorts of violence on Jews. Only in the subtitled translations, it turned into Israelis. In 2021, some young Jewish adults were attacked on a bus in Oxford Street, violently attacked. It was horrible. And the BBC was the only media outlet to imagine a racist slur by those victims that no one else heard at all. It didn't exist.
They tried to justify the attack as if it was they were provoked. Yes, yes.
Indeed. Then they held a debate in which it was debated whether Jews should be able to identify as a minority. They have repeatedly given platforms to fringe organisations from which those organisations have spouted really abhorrent stuff, and pretending that they are representative of mainstream Jewish thought. Of course, as we know, for over 2 years, they have spouted unverified propaganda from an anti-Semitic prescribed terrorist organisation. And now, of course, what they have done is they have erased the Jews from the Holocaust. There is something deeply, deeply wrong institutionally at the BBC, and it is sinister.
I've always sort of railed back from accusing the BBC or people at the BBC of outright anti-Semitism, although I do think there are questions to be asked, particularly of their newsroom. Their editorial approach, as you say, to the Gazan conflict has been dubious, to say the least, very pro-Palestine, very anti-Israel, to the point where sometimes you think this is all down to Jew hatred. Now, yesterday, though, I should give the BBC their right of reply, so bear with me while they have apologised. for yesterday's awful events. They said this morning's BBC programming they praised themselves for a little while here. This morning's BBC programming commemorated Holocaust Memorial Day. The Today programme featured interviews with relatives of Holocaust survivors and a report from our religion editor. In both of these items, we referenced the 6 million Jews murdered during the Holocaust. That's nice, isn't it? It's good that they actually did mention on this occasion that the people who were annihilated, exterminated, were Jews. That's nice. They go on to say the chief rabbi recorded the thought for the day. BBC Breakfast featured a project organised by the Holocaust Educational Trust in which a Jewish survivor of the Holocaust recorded her memories. In the news bulletins on Today and in the introduction to the story on BBC Breakfast, there were references to Holocaust Memorial Day which were incorrectly worded and for which we apologise. Both should have referred to 6 million Jewish people, and we will be issuing a correction on our website. My point is, Stephen, is this is across 3 programmes. So they're kind of trying to say, oh, well, this was a sort of bulletin that was shared across these programmes. Now, these programmes have quite a few people working on them, you know, often upwards, 100, 70, 100, something like that. So you're telling me that all of these people didn't notice that they did not mention that the people exterminated in the Holocaust were Jewish, that they just didn't happen to notice. This to me, this is serious. I think this is institutional. I think that not saying that the people who died in the Holocaust were Jewish on 3 different programmes is a very, very serious offence. And the BBC need to do a lot more than issue this kind of backslapping itself kind of apology. Oh, no, we actually pushed the boat out on Holocaust Day. Yeah, OK, we didn't mention that Jewish people died, but apart from that, we were absolutely saintly. They need to do more than this. They need to take a look at themselves very, very seriously, don't you think?
Look, that apology will have fallen on deaf ears. It's not as if they got a detail wrong. But it is symptomatic. I think you're right about the institutional problem at the BBC. I don't think they can really deny that now. It's gone on for too long and too often. But it is symptomatic of a wider malaise, which manifests itself as this urgent need to universalize the Holocaust to the point where Jews are almost written out of it. And we're getting reports coming into us now from around the country of things that have taken place at Holocaust Memorial Day remembrance events that are really quite staggering. I mean, I remember 7 or 8 years ago, I had to write to my old school because they made a statement on Holocaust Memorial Day on Facebook, saying that this was a time to remember the Roma, the Sinti, the gays, the political prisoners, the disabled, all of whom lost their lives during the Holocaust. I mean, as you can imagine, I was incandescent.
Yeah.
So this is nothing new, but this has been a creeping progression where I believe what we are seeing is the effect on people with progressive views, people who are probably usually decent people, but the effect on them of a very radical leftist view that puts Jews in the category of white oppressors and therefore do not deserve to be recognized for this unique, horrifying event that has not been equaled before in history and hopefully never will be again. But it might be if the current trend is allowed to continue.
Yeah, this was definitively the worst crime against humanity in history, in human history. And yes, there were some other minorities who were exterminated by those awful Nazis, but the vast majority of those 6 million people were Jewish. And once again, you know, you're always very sanguine about this, Stephen, but you must, and you handle these situations in a very sophisticated and civilised way, but inside you must be seething. I mean, I am so angry about this.
It's horrible. And I guess because of the work I do, one needs to remain slightly detached in order to be able to do it and represent the issues properly. But this is very, very serious. I mean, even the word Holocaust itself has become confused. People increasingly think Holocaust means what the Nazis did to Jews, Roma, Sinti, the disabled, and others. It doesn't. The things that happened to those other groups were appalling, they were atrocious, and they need to be remembered. But the Holocaust was a term coined to describe the Nazis' determination to completely exterminate by industrial means the Jews from Europe and elsewhere. I mean, they even worked to try to ensure that they wouldn't even be able to survive in the Middle East if they got there. And it happened because the Nazis believed that the Jews were simultaneously subhuman, vermin, yet at the same time all-powerful and secretly controlling everything, and that the future of humanity depended on the Nazis being able to eradicate them. It is unique. It was horrendous. And if you erase the Jews from it, you are heading into a very, very, very dangerous place.
Try to explain this to me, Stephen. I had Jake Wallace-Simon on yesterday, the Jewish author and columnist, and I asked him this. I said, why was it that after October the 7th, you know, another atrocity committed on innocent Jews, more than 1,200 innocent Jewish people killed by those Hamas thugs, you know, murdered, women raped, babies put in ovens, people beheaded. After that, ever since then, there has been an explosion in this country, and indeed, to be fair, other Western countries as well, but especially here. After that atrocity in which the victims were Jewish, in this country, there has been an explosion of anti-Semitism, an explosion that I think we both agree has caught the BBC as well. The BBC are a part of this explosion of anti-Semitism. Why? Why have people railed against the victims of this atrocity? Why anti-Semitism after the Jews were the victims of this appalling attack on innocent people?
I think future historians are going to spend a lot of time looking at how normal, innocent people with progressive views were radicalized by the alliance of radical left extremists and Islamist extremists. Those groups understood that anti-Semitism is a way of destabilizing the West. October the 7th was a starting gun for this. And we've been seeing it ever since. And, you know, if you look at what happened in the Midlands with West Midlands Police and the Maccabi Aston Villa football match, that's another example of it. It has enforced a change in the way we enforce our social values at a rate we did not anticipate. Yes, the Jews are the target. Anti-Semitism affects the Jews first, but they are not called the canaries in the coal mine for no good reason, because these people, this alliance is coming for everyone. And what is happening on Holocaust Memorial Day, what we are seeing in our institutions elsewhere, should be a massive red light and siren for everybody to wake up, and for our politicians to get a grip and back up their rhetoric with tough action.
Yeah, you're quite right. When historically, when countries are consumed by irrational anti-Semitism, it usually means culturally and politically and socially they are in big trouble, and I think that certainly applies to this country right now. Stephen, well, keep up the good work and keep up your campaign, and thank you so much for joining us. Unbelievable, folks. I mean, as I say, I'm very angry about that. Are you?